We talked about the Colossus, what it should not be used for, with the catastrophic injuries and the burns and scarring and things like that. And then here's an emphasis of some of the key points of Colossus. So it provides the insurance companies help in assessing damages for bodily injuries. And essentially, it's a huge database where the adjusters input the information regarding the bodily injury claim. And then the program provides information regarding the damages and the settlement ranges. That's essentially what happens. So this is kind of the boring stuff, but let me go through it and get to the more exciting stuff. So the adjusters input, essentially the adjusters input everything. Everything matters. Anything and everything matters. That's the bottom line. Meaning, if the doctor doesn't document it, it didn't happen. And it can only be inputted from the doctor's notes, not from the attorney. The attorney's opinion, their voice, has absolutely no say in injury award software. So it's important that the attorneys are working with doctors that understand the financial drivers of Colossus. So the adjusters will also put information regarding liability, medical information, general damage information, basic information, their name, address, phone number, claimant's name, date of birth, gender, basic stuff that anybody would do. And then enters the appropriate injury codes. Here we go. This is when it starts getting important. You have a doctor that doesn't know the financial driver categories, and if he doesn't know the coding, what codings are more relevant and less, and I'll give you a real simple example, then automatically that injury award's lowered. And why is it lowered? Is it because of the injury? No. It's lowered because of the doctor's lack of information, lack of training in personal injury, and in this particular case, the diagnosis. I'll give you an example. When a doctor does the diagnosis of muscle tension, and then, by the way, this example is real common. Well, there's no value for muscle tension in the injury award software. The value is muscle spasm. So if the doctor's just putting in, the code for muscle tension, you've got nothing. This is just one example of 57, out of 75 potential documentation categories. Remember, 57 of them, 57% are not being documented by the doctor. And that's a classic example. We're going to cover several others, but that's a classic example. So the input data, the adjusters input the data solely based on the medical records, the doctor's medical records and notes. That's it. So it becomes very important. The doctor you refer to and you work with, and that doctor's education with personal injury documentation. And I'll share this one experience with you. Many times when I'm doing seminars live, I'll ask the attorneys, I say, how many of you learned personal injury and how to process personal injury cases in law school? And right about the time I finish, I hear a chuckle. They're like, the attorneys are like laughing. They're like, what a joke that is. Well, guess what? The exact same thing happens in chiropractic school and medical school. The amount of information the attorney was trained in personal injury case management in law school is exactly the amount of personal injury documentation the chiropractor and the medical doctor was trained. They're not. They're trained in the basics. I mean, the case that I shared with you, with the case that I had, it was worse than 50%. They had even less than 50%. The medical doctor, the emergency room doctor and the GP, they only had 30% of the documentation for that case. When the attorney sent them to me, I documented 70% more than those doctors. Why? Because they weren't trained in personal injury documentation. That's the difference it makes.